Good morning and welcome to the news review segment of the Power Breakfast Show. This morning it's my pleasure to introduce in the panel Mheshimiwa Irungu Kang'ata, Member of Parliament for Kiharu, also aspiring for the Senate position. Mheshimiwa Francis Mwangangi, Member of Parliament for Yata constituency. Mheshimiwa, good morning and welcome. It's the first time we're sharing this podium together. Of course, Mheshimiwa Beatrice, the Lachi nominated senator. Always a pleasure having you here. And Brian Weke, civil rights activist. By sheer coincidence, Irungu Kang'ata and Beatrice Elachi didn't get the memo. Apparently, the three of us gentlemen got the memo that it's a Pink Friday. So
I have some thinking.
Yeah. I didn't realize. So you got half the memo.
Half the memo.
Very quickly, what we have in the papers this morning. I'll start with the Daily Nation headline: How 5.2 million voters impact on the battle for power. The same story is also carried in the Standard, the front page of the Standard, the same story about the numbers, how they're going to pan out, and the story is featured more on pages 1 and 6 of both dailies. Page 1 of the Daily Nation has a story about Kenya rolling out a modern drug to fight HIV and AIDS, that is DTG. I'm not going to try to pronounce this name because the medics out there may just be on my case. More about that wonder drug on page 2 of the Daily Nation. Page 3 has a standard about Kenyan's quest to set a new world record on most people shaving at the same time. Now they're trying to get into the Guinness Book of World Records to outdo Mexico, who was the record of about 2,374 people all shaving at the same time. Page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation have a story about graft. Raila Kalonzo bid is bankrolled by graft laws, says Ruto, as NASA links Jubilee to Masai Mara scam on page 5. This is what transpired in Narok yesterday when NASA were in their campaign rallies. More about the voter numbers and how they will pan out, page 6 of the Daily Nation. An interesting story at the back page of the Daily Nation: hunger crisis set to worsen, say the United Nations. Apparently more than 3.6 million Kenyans will be in need of relief food by August this year. This is according to a United Nations humanitarian agency that says the latest report on food situation in the country has been worsened by the delayed rains, the late planting, poor crop performance, infestation of armyworms in 25 counties, steep increase in prices of staple food, among other issues like resource-based conflict. Very quickly, Mheshimiwa Mwangangi could look at the Standard. Like I told you earlier, front page, who do the poll numbers favor? 19.6 million Kenyans have registered as voters. According to the 2013 results, 86% of the total registered voters turned out to vote, and this gives the IEBC a possible projection of a possible turnout of 90% in these elections. Now, page 6 of the Standard looks at that in detail. An interesting story on page 4 of the Standard. A woman now sues the Kenya Airports Authority, her former employer, after she was sacked for having made the CS Fred Matiang'i queue while preparing to board an aircraft at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Daisy Cherogony, who was working as a security supervisor, is accused of having mistreated and humiliated the Dr. Matiang'i by insisting that he should queue while like other passengers for security check. Now, she says there's no law that she broke and there's nothing wrong in what she did. She was just carrying out her work.
Absolutely.
Interesting story, page 6 of the Daily of the Standard. A man has now taken the government to court for failing to stop National Super Alliance presidential candidate Raila Odinga from vying in the August 8th polls. Charles Mwangi, once President Uhuru Kenyatta ordered to form a special commission to investigate Attorney General Githu Muigai, anti-corruption boss Eliud Wabukala, and IEBC Chair Wafula Chebukati, together with Inspector General of Police Joseph Boynet, for having failed to stop Raila Odinga from contesting. More stories about the campaigns. High octane, page 8 and 9 of the Standard. Uhuru Ruto hit out at Raila over law review push. Raila says Jubilee leaders took 130 million shillings as a bribe, and he has more details about that. And story that will be of interest to people from around Meru and the surrounding areas. Now, there's an Ethiopian researcher who says chewing miraa is poor for academic performance. That can be found on page 10 of the Standard. Ladies and gentlemen, we look at the first story that is making headlines. The numbers, the numbers, the numbers. Page 1 and 6 of both dailies. how 5.2 million new voters impact on the battle for power. The Standard says, who do the polls favor? Now the Standard goes ahead, Mheshimiwa Irungu Kang'ata, and says, Choice 2017, projections from the new IEBC list based on the 2013 report indicate that the way Western, Narok, Meru and South Rift vote will determine who becomes president. As for now, nobody has an absolute 50% for +1. What do you think?
Personally, I disagree, because when you look at those numbers, you'll see that it is an increase of young people being registered as voters across the board. And when you look at the counties which enjoy the largest share of new voters, they are all pro-Jubilee. I've seen Kiambu is one of the county which has registered one of the highest increase of voters, and therefore I think the number...
Actually Kiambu, Nakuru and Nairobi.
You see Nakuru is a Jubilee stronghold, Kiambu is a Jubilee stronghold, Nairobi is everyone's stronghold. We share supports almost on a 50-50 basis. If at all previous 2013 election is anything to go by. So it shows the new numbers are in favor of our party, and therefore I foresee an early win of Jubilee.
The argument here is that should Western turn out more and vote, then this increased registered voters in Kiambu and Nakuru will have been managed.
Yes, the truth is, personally, your statement makes a lot of sense.
No, not my statement. That is what the paper
Well, it is true. The statement from that paper makes a lot of sense. But the problem is very simple. These guys who belong to the coalition called NASA, they are not very strategic. They failed to give the Western people any good position in that arrangement. The key sons from the so-called Mulembe nation were given posts which don't exist as we speak in the current constitutional dispensation. And even if you were to tell them no, they are going to exist after you get into the power, it will take a lot of effort to effect those constitutional changes. So therefore the point is, I don't foresee Mulembe nation coming out in large numbers to vote. They don't have their sons.
You think there is nothing exciting them?
Nothing.
Mheshimiwa Mwangangi.
And again, finally, you have to look at the historical voting pattern of that region. It tends to hover around 50 to 60%. So if these guys were more innovative, probably they should have handed that ticket to Mudavadi. By doing that, most likely those numbers could have gone up. But now, I see on the
your take on the numbers and how they will pan out. Who do they favor?
That tells you definitely NASA will be in State House by 9, if not 10, latest.
But then voting will not have ended. How will you be in State House?
No. There's a lot of hopelessness in this country, from across, from that Kiambu, from the Nakuru, and then the argument that most of our people will vote like this simply because there is one of you at the top. That's a lie. Who from Mulembe Nation is at the top from the Jubilee side, such that they can be enticed to go that side. So in this case, there are so many challenges. Some of them have never happened in this country, like the issue of look at the issue of cost of living, touching on issues touching on men's. Everyone, this country, in Kiambu, in Machakos, in Inata, are victims of this. So these are common wanainchi who are suffering, which makes it easy for them to coalesce around a common coalition that is going to bring solution to some of these challenges.
Senator Elachi, Mheshimiwa Irungu Kang'ata says voting patterns will be determined by historical practices and of course the issue of stronghold. Mheshimiwa Mwangangi here feels the determining factor is the cost of living. How do you think the numbers will be affected?
Well, first of all, I don't want to go into cost of living, because one of the things I always say is that every MP has been an implementer like the president. So I hope Mheshimiwa is coming back, because he has implemented and he has ensured the lives of his people without looking at the president with the money, and him of CDF has done something that they feel, I am going to vote for an MP. And that is why they are out there trying to ensure I have a member of parliament. Or if they haven't, they have the same problem which even the presidential candidate is facing, that you did not perform and you need to be going home. That is one. But when I look at the numbers, and these are numbers, 9 million young people, I think
9.9 million.
9.9 million, which is like 10 million young people.
Sadly, less than 50% women.
I know, and it's very sad. Why? Because, one, you remember when we were doing that voter registration mopping out. So most of the people would go, young people are ready, and they would go, which is good also. I would want young people now to take charge. For me, I feel young people, yes, the young women who are in, we need to ask ourselves why. But the other thing we need to ask ourselves as a country is that, yes, we have the swing vote, we have a vote from me, from the Mulembe side, as they say. It will be up to both NASA or Jubilee.
How they play their
card. Because for us, I know our people look at two things. What is there for us? And that is the most sad part. And you'll find most of them waking up in the morning, and in the day of the voting, if you're not careful, they'll be saying, so I'm going to vote for you then. So you have to really, really come out and really persuade them to walk to that ballot.
So depending on what's there for you. Now a new concept here. First of all, we had historical patterns and stronghold issues, arguments. We have cost of living. You have brought in performance and what is there for me.
And the other thing is also how the governors, it's going to be a very interesting coming out.
Basically performance.
Yes, performance. And then we have the governors, some independent, some... All these people will be mobilizing people. So I think in the end of the day, you'll find that either quite 80% will come out, depending on how the governors... For me, I feel it is the governors who
will determine how
these people
Brian,
come
your take on these numbers and how they will pan out. Who will they benefit and why?
I think if you look at the numbers, and if you look at that story, it's quite skewed. And when you listen to Mheshimiwa Irongo Kangata, who once said he wanted to scrap the Senate, and it clearly looks like he's quickly heading there.
There's a saying that only fools don't change their mind.
I think in that case, Mheshimiwa Kangata is not a fool.
Precisely.
So if you look at that story, it is quite skewed, because you see it only mentions Kiambu and Nakuru.
In Nairobi.
In Nairobi. But if you continue reading the story, and you look at all other counties that have been mentioned, because that only will contribute to an eighth. Now, if you look at the story and analyze it very well, you will realize that the numbers are actually with the NASA team. Because if you look at the increase in Mombasa, look at the increase in a number of counties that are NASA affiliated. So again, the headline is a little bit skewed to favor a certain position, but if you read it in detail, you'll realize that NASA has the numbers.
So what do you think? What do you think is going to drive people to turn out and vote? IEBC is projecting 90%.
You know, Fred, I want to agree with Honorable Elachi that politics mainly is about what is in it for me. And this time around, Kenyans will actually definitely come out to vote. Why? Because of a number of key things. Number one is the cost of living. You know, when you say what is in it for us, if we cannot be able to find unga, forget about the pricing, because pricing is one thing. But even now, if you have 140 Kenya shillings, still you're not able to find that unga in the shop. Issues to do. Just the other day, I went to buy sugar. It's quite expensive. So when you talk about what is in it for us, so Kenyans would actually turn out and vote, because now it has ceased to be about leaders, and now it is literally about them. Currently, it's about really the cost of just common basic commodities. Issues to do with corruption. You know, the discussion has been moved from just mere corruption to a level where we are literally plundering and looting the country. So I think those are very key issues to the common man. So for now, majorly they will not be voting in for NASA. they will actually be voting out the current government.
The trend that we saw in America, we also saw it in France. Voting out what you don't want, regardless of who you vote in.
Absolutely.
But I want to ask you...
But before you go there,
yeah.
I would wish as politicians, yeah, we cannot lie to Kenyans the high cost of living. By the time we enter September, NASA has a solution for us.
Actually, UN says in August we are going to have
the worst
situation.
So I don't know how NASA has already started preparing to ensure the worst doesn't come in. So let us not use the thing that politicians must do. I mean, and I pray for that in my country, that when you're telling Kenyans the truth, regardless of how painful it is, they will appreciate. They are fed up of lies. So both sides, let us not lie about this cost of living. You'll just walk into an office. Stop lying, because you have to walk into that office. You must form your government. You must now understand whether you're coming in. And I always say the governors are the ones who are going to be hit by shocks, because you might enter into a county government and find yourself in a debt of billions. You have no idea where to start.
Fair enough.
So we should be very careful.
Today we don't have so much time, ladies and gentlemen, and so
we should be very careful, Charles, as we talk to Kenyans. Let us tell Kenyans the truth. They will appreciate.
There's one thing I need your opinion on. Beatrice mentioned it in passing. Contests. We have big numbers of independent candidates, big numbers seeking gubernatorial positions, and etc., etc. Do you think this in a way will help spur the number of people who turn out to vote?
Yes, to a certain extent, yes, because what happens, the more the candidates you have, the more mobilization you have at the grassroots level. So therefore, I think having more candidates makes more sense. Although I'm not so certain as to whether the total number of all aspirants has increased to surpass the 2013 numbers. I'm not so certain. In fact, if I am right, though, I would want a confirmation. It appears those numbers have gone down. But on the other hand, all factors remaining constant, it is a positive.
There are certain seats in which contests have gone down, like member of the National Assembly. But there are certain seats like MCA which have exponentially risen.
Well, if at all that is the position, to me that's a very positive thing, because the most important person towards mobilizing people at the grassroots level, of course it goes without saying, is an MCA.
And that's from experience.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course, because it happens. The MCA will go to a burial, to a local church, is going to a certain, let's say, a dowry ceremony. That MCA will be telling people, come out and vote. By doing that, it's more helpful. Compare that with, let's say, a person who is vying for a senatorial position. By the time I'm able to go at the grassroots level to each and every village, that may take quite a lot of time.
Francis, Beatrice is casting aspersions on the credibility of the promises you're giving, like handling the cost of living as NASA. She says the time is too short. You can't wave the magic wand in 1 month and change things.
That statement in itself is a good reason why Kenyans should vote out Jubilee and then ensure NASA is in place. Because I, as a voter, not even as a leader, I expect whoever I'm going to vote to offer solutions to challenges affecting me. If you are crying equally like me, then do you really deserve to be in leadership? So in this case, I think we have clear strategies. We have a clear plan, and we know what to do once we get in. The issue of whether it will happen or not does not arise, because by that time Erach will be out and will not be talking anything to do with the government. Because you can hear, how do you fail to control what is tasked by Kenyans for you to do, and then you start claiming, don't promise this, don't promise. We have a clear way on how to deal with these issues, and I am assuring Kenyans the best way to do, irrespective of where you come from. Because it is not true that Kiambu cannot vote for any other candidate other than the president. People are suffering everywhere. Have gone to some of these areas and people are crying.
But something was mentioned by both Mheshimiwa Khataya and even Beatrice and Brian Weke hinted at it. The issue of what's in it for us is what will make people vote.
True, that's very true. 100% that is very true. And I'm saying it is true because, one, We have discussed about cost of living. I will add another one. Look at the issue of tribalism in this country. We are just talking, but in practice, that is what exactly we are doing. And I will tell Kenyans here something that they saw the other day. Upon setting up of Jubilee, and my colleagues, I'm sure they will agree with me, we saw and a whole national chairman of the biggest party in Africa, even not the second, ODM, he resigned to go back to Jubilee. And he had also a number of leaders from that region who are termed by them to be national. Then from somewhere in central Kenya, you saw PK, Peter Kenneth. He even left his party to go back to Jubilee. You saw even Martha Karua doing the same. Now you look at has not left, but is supporting. You know. So in this case, you ask yourself, which type of a country are we building? Look at even today, even the structure. Where is the representation? Where is the Kenya as a country?
Is representation an issue? Beatrice?
Well, first of all, I want to ask Mheshimiwa, and it is sad because you're on air, and a few months ago, you used to hit so much on your leader, Kalonzo Musyoka. But today, because you want the vote, you have come here. You know me, that's why I always say I'm always candid. You'll forgive me. Because I've been with him in Parliament.
I'll give you an example of standing orders in Parliament.
Limmering Kalonzo so much, but because today he wants the vote, he faces his people and he says, these ones are tribal. We are all tribal. We have to appreciate
standing orders in Parliament, and
yes.
Brian Weke referred to it.
Yes.
When the standing order is not clear, what do? Refer to rule number one. Rule number one is only fools don't change their mind.
Yes. Charles, I will tell my good senator one thing. Ask your people before we end this show to bring that clip, and here and then, not tomorrow, here and then. No. I will even quit this race. Just bring it now. You don't have to mislead the country.
You have to be proud.
He has brought in
only the way we look at our tribalism, and that is
it's
why
only tribal so long as it's not leaving out.
And I want to tell Mheshimiwa, it's not bad, but the only problem is the way now we take it into a very negative way, and we tell now Kenyans, our supporters, this is how we are. But I remember Onyango Law had to move and go back to Kisumu and have to go to OTM. What do we do with Onyango? And I always tell women, you want to vie, and I know Weke has been one of my trainers, if your region is what is speaking as Jubilee, you have to go to Jubilee or else you lose.
But when you train them?
No, I mean, we have no choice. You want to win, but we always say when you come now into Parliament, then now you have to try and bring in change. So you have to look at those things and try and make them positive, because that is how we have taken our politics. Those are the vehicles, whether we like it or not. If you are not behind Kalonzo in Ukambani, you have an issue. If you are not behind Raila, you have an issue. That's why I'm saying I appreciate the young people, 9 million, 9.9, and I'm hoping going forward, all these things are going to change. But for us to finish this dispensation of a crop of politicians we've had for 20 years, that is where they've taken our country.
Brian,
we must heal it.
Does the end justify the means? She just says you train them, among other things, is make sure you get to the vehicle that takes you there.
Good.
You know, first of all, before I answer that, I want to agree with Beatrice, when Senator Beatrice Elachi, when she says that NASA will not be able to deal with this crisis immediately. You know, this government, and I really sympathize with the NASA once they check in. When you hear Senator talking about the problems that governors have put their counties in. Now, if you look at the amount of debt that NASA will inherit, it's crazy. You even wonder how will you start building the country, because now our debt is at 4 trillion. The mess that if NASA were to get in, issues to do with this food crisis, is a serious macroeconomic issue which will not be dealt with instantly. So again, I agree that this country is in a big mess in terms of our economy. It's nearly on its knees. And that's the reason why people will definitely opt to change. And Fred, let's be very honest, people will not vote in NASA. They'll be voting out this government. So, and those things have actually gone into people's head. It is deeply ingrained. So as we speak, I can tell you for a fact, nearly 90% of Kenyans have literally made up their minds. And that is the reason why you find people going to a region and they're told, Unga, it is time to leave, NASA, even areas that are traditionally Jubilee. Now, when you hear Elachi saying that, you know, a member of parliament, regardless of where you come from, if you run on a Jubilee ticket in Luo Nyanza, you are a joyrider. Let's be very honest. So I agree with Beatrice when she says, when you want to run proper elections, if Irongo Kangata wants to run for senator, or na maendeleo chap in Moranga, my friend, let's be very
regardless clear. Of my performance, regardless of what I stand for.
Ask Rafael Tuju. He was one of the best members of parliament when he was the MP. He delivered way more than a number of MPs have delivered after him, combined. Guess what? He was never elected.
He was in the wrong vehicle.
He was in the wrong vehicle.
We'll be taking a short commercial break. When we come back, I want us to look at a very pertinent issue that you have just mentioned in passing, corruption. During the release of their manifestos on Monday and Tuesday for Jubilee and NASA respectively, the issue of corruption, Jubilee said they are going to set up a central procurement services agency to help deal with the graft. NASA said they are going to hold graft by the horns and deal with it decisively. Now, if you look at pages 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation today, and also inside the pages of the Standard, you will realize this was the war yesterday when NASA were in Narok and Jubilee were in Embu. But we'll be looking at that in a short while. In my panel this morning, Mheshimiwa Irungu Kangata, Member of Parliament for Kiharu, Mheshimiwa Francis Mwangangi, Member of Parliament for Yatta, Mheshimiwa Beatrice Elachi, Senator, and Brian Weke, Civil Rights Activist, shortly after this.